very early on the morning of the appointment. We go to the civilian hospital and they confirm she's in active labor. I called her mom, who immediately booked a flight that would have gotten her here at about noon. Then, my mom came to the hospital a few hours later. A while later the midwife came in to see my wife and was rude from the start. My wife told her I was back from deployment, and she calmed down a little but was still clearly not happy I was in the room, especially once I started cracking jokes to try to distract my wife from the pain of the contractions. Then the midwife glared at me and told me to take this seriously and have respect for my wife while she was in pain. My wife asked me to tell her jokes. We were both making jokes, not just me. I thought her hostility was weird, but I was more focused on my wife and doing all I could to support her. As it got closer to noon, my wife was almost 9 centimeters dilated, so I decided not to go pick up her mom from the airport and had her take a cab instead so I wouldn't have to leave for over an hour to drive to the airport. When her mom did get to the hospital, I left the L&D floor briefly to go downstairs and pay the cab driver so her mom wouldn't need to. As the cab was pulling up, I got a call from my mom telling me the OB and midwife were there, and the baby was coming fast. Of course, I rushed back up there after tossing some cash to the cab driver, so her mom and I could be there for the birth. When I got back to the L&D floor, my mom was in the waiting room since she had to step out to make the phone call and also knew she would be waiting outside. I used the intercom to ask to be let back in, and to my surprise, I was denied entry. They said they had an order to not let me or anyone in to see my wife. That was really confusing, so I asked why, and was just told I wouldn't be let in and not to tie them up on the intercom or security would be called. So the three of us waited outside since my wife didn't answer her phone as she was actively pushing our baby out. Well over 2 hours later she was able to call me back and asked where I had been. I told her the hospital staff wouldn't let me in, but I had been in the waiting room trying to get answers for almost 2.5 hours. Long story short, it was the midwife who told the desk staff that I wasn't to be let back in. She lied and said my wife had reported I was abusive and she didn't want me there. So not only did my poor wife have to give birth alone and without me or her mom there for support, I missed the birth of my daughter. It meant a lot to me to be there to see my baby come into the world because I missed so much of the pregnancy. And that was ripped away from me because this awful woman didn't like that I never showed up to a single appointment the entire pregnancy despite being told by my wife that I was deployed. So, with my wife's support, I filed a formal complaint about the midwife, and she ended up getting fired by the OB's office. Update: we met with the JAG attorney on Monday, and it seems like I have a good case for going after her license, as well as a possible defamation lawsuit. She's a certified nurse midwife, so she has a license that can be revoked or suspended. I'm not convinced it needs to be revoked altogether, but I do think she should be suspended for a while and forced to get more training in her field. The attorney JAG assigned to me as a parent herself and seemed genuinely appalled that someone would have to miss the birth of their child because a member of the medical staff used their influence to deny entry back into the maternity wing, especially for a made-up reason that could have gotten me in a lot of trouble with the Navy. My wife could come with me to the meeting and have a brief conversation with the JAG. On the drive home, she told me what they spoke about, and basically, the attorney just needed to confirm that everything the midwife said about me being abusive was false and unfounded. When my wife told her I had never and would never lay a hand on her or my child, she asked if my wife felt any sort of emotional distress about me not being there for the birth. She confirmed that she does, and that's when it was decided that we would try to build a case for more than just possible medical malpractice. We don't care about any monetary gain. If we were awarded anything, it will go into an educational account for our daughter, or be donated to a charity. We are in agreement that the midwife should have to answer for what she did though. She took away a once-in-a-lifetime experience for me. Even if we have more children, I'll never get back the lost experience of not seeing my firstborn come into the world. So that's where things stand right now. Any further updates will most likely be a long way off since there's going to be pending litigation soon. Thank you to, almost, everyone who commented and offered encouragement. It gave me the push I needed to seek out a legal remedy for the situation. My wife and I are truly thankful.